The night was heavy with smoke and silence. The battlefield stretched endlessly, broken armor and shattered weapons scattered across the ground. The air carried the bitter smell of fire and blood. Among the ruins lay the alien warrior princess, her body weak, her spear broken in half beside her. She had fought until her strength failed, and now even her breath felt like a fading flame. Far away, a human soldier walked slowly, separated from his unit. His name was Daniel, but in this place names mattered less than survival. He moved carefully, scanning the shadows, listening to every distant crack of stone and rustle of ash. His uniform was torn, his rifle empty, yet his eyes still held the sharpness of a man who refused to fall. When he stumbled upon the princess, he froze, unsure if she was friend or foe. Her eyes opened weakly, glowing faint silver in the darkness. She looked at him with pain, but also with pride, as if even broken she would not bow. Daniel saw the shattered spear lying in the dirt, its sharp edges glowing faintly with strange alien light. Without thinking, he reached down and picked it up. The weapon felt heavy, not in weight, but in meaning, as though the very air shifted around him. The princess gasped, her lips trembling as she whispered in her language. To Daniel, it was only sound, but to her, it was prophecy. The law of her people was clear. Whoever lifted the broken spear of the warrior princess became her chosen protector. It was not a choice. It was a binding oath written long before either of them was born. And now, without knowing, a human had taken the oath meant for kings and champions. Daniel studied the broken weapon, confused by the faint symbols glowing across its shaft. He thought perhaps it was only alien technology, some strange energy he could not understand. He had no idea that with that single act he had changed his fate. In the shadows, other eyes watched, silent and waiting. Whispers carried through the ruins. "The bond has been sealed," they said. The princess tried to rise, her body trembling. Her voice was weak, but her eyes burned as she pointed to the spear in his hand. Daniel shook his head, not understanding. "I don't want this," he muttered, his voice steady but uncertain. Yet his hand refused to let go, as if something deep inside demanded he hold on. Suddenly, the ground shook with heavy steps. Figures emerged from the smoke, alien warriors with blades curved like crescent moons. Their armor gleamed red under the faint light, their eyes filled with rage. They had come not for the princess, but for the human who now held her spear. Daniel's heart pounded, his body screamed for him to run, but the princess's weak voice stopped him. She whispered a single word, her language sharp like the crack of a whip. Though he could not understand, he felt the weight of it. The warriors circled, laughing at the sight of a tired human holding a broken weapon. But when they saw the glowing symbols across his hand, their laughter faded. They realized what he had unknowingly become, the chosen protector. Daniel gripped the spear tightly, the broken edge reflecting dim firelight. He knew he was not ready. He knew he was alone. But something in the air had shifted, something bound him to the figure on the ground. The princess's eyes, filled with pain yet hope, anchored him in place. He stood firm as the warriors stepped closer, their weapons raised. The first clash was sudden, steel against the alien spear. Daniel's arms shook as he blocked the strike, sparks flying in the smoke-filled night. He pushed back with every ounce of strength, his body burning with exhaustion. But the weapon did not break. Instead, the broken spear glowed brighter in his grip. The warriors hesitated, their eyes widening at the sight. Daniel attacked, his movements untrained but desperate. Every strike was clumsy, yet carried the weight of survival. The warriors underestimated him, but each time he refused to fall. The princess whispered words he could not hear clearly, as if guiding him with her voice. Her hand pressed against the ground, faint energy spreading around them like a circle. At last, the warriors stepped back, their leader raising a hand to stop the fight. "You are bound now, human," the alien leader hissed, his voice heavy with disdain. "This is not over. The trials will come. And if you fail, both you and she will die." Daniel did not answer, his chest heaving, his hand still holding the glowing spear. The aliens retreated into the smoke, their voices fading like the echo of a curse. Silence returned to the battlefield, broken only by the crackle of fire. Daniel looked at the princess, who now stared at him with eyes sharp as blades. Though weak, she bowed her head slightly, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. He had taken her spear, and with it, her fate. And though he did not yet know it, he had taken his own as well. The night grew darker, the stars above hidden by smoke. The night carried heavy silence after the clash. Daniel stood, breathing hard, his grip tight on the broken spear. The faint glow from the weapon still pulsed like a heartbeat, wrapping his hand with strange light. The princess tried to lift herself from the ground, her body trembling as blood marked her armor. Her lips moved, speaking words he could not understand, yet her eyes told him everything. She pointed weakly to the spear, her voice sharp but soft, as if she was warning him. Daniel frowned, shaking his head. "I don't understand," he whispered, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. But even as he said it, the symbols across the spear shifted, glowing brighter. The light spread along his arm, searing into his skin like fire. Daniel hissed in pain, trying to shake it off, but the spear clung to him as if alive. The princess's eyes widened, fear mixing with awe. In her world, the old law was clear. The moment a warrior's broken spear was lifted, an unseen, oath-bound protector and heir together. It was a bond stronger than blood, stronger than death. The one who carried the spear became shield and sword of the princess until her final breath. And if he failed her, the curse would consume them both. Daniel felt the burning ease, leaving a faint mark like glowing veins across his hand. He stared at it, his mind racing. "What the hell is happening?" he muttered. The princess pushed herself closer, her weak fingers reaching to touch his hand. The moment her skin brushed the mark, both of them gasped as a surge of energy passed between them. Daniel staggered back, while she whispered in her tongue, her voice breaking with shock. Around them, the shadows moved again, whispering figures hiding in the ruins. They were not the warriors who had attacked before. These were silent watchers, cloaked in darkness. They carried no blades, yet their presence pressed on Daniel's chest like invisible weight. Their eyes glowed faint green, and one of them spoke with a voice that echoed like wind in a cave. "The oath has been taken. The bond is sealed." Daniel turned toward the sound, tightening his grip on the broken weapon. He wanted answers, but he could only see shifting shapes retreating into smoke. The princess coughed, pulling his attention back, her silver eyes locking onto his. She tried to speak slowly, choosing words he might understand. "Protector," she said in broken human tongue, her voice raw. The single word made his heart pound harder. He shook his head, stepping back. "No, I didn't agree to this. I don't even know you," he said firmly. But the spear glowed again, pulsing with a light that refused to fade. Daniel realized that it was no longer just a weapon. It was a chain, and though he wanted to walk away, some force deeper than reason told him he could not. The princess leaned forward, her strength almost gone. Her voice cracked, but her gaze was fierce. "Protector," she repeated, and then touched her chest. "Me," she added. Then she pointed to him. "You." Daniel's throat tightened as the meaning sank in. He had become something he did not want, yet could not escape. A sudden cry echoed in the distance, sharp and chilling. Daniel turned quickly, scanning the broken ground. Dozens of alien warriors approached, their armor shining with red flames. Unlike the last group, these carried banners with glowing emblems, symbols of a royal guard. The princess's face tightened. She whispered a single word filled with dread. "Hunters." The hunters spread across the ruins, forming a circle around them. Their leader stepped forward, tall and armored in black steel, his blade burning with green fire. He looked at Daniel, then at the princess, his expression twisted with disgust. "The oath has been broken by a human hand," he growled. "This cannot be allowed." Daniel gritted his teeth, raising the broken spear as if it could shield them. The hunters laughed at the sight, their voices cruel. "You do not even know what you hold," the leader sneered, "yet you dare claim it." Daniel's hands shook, but he refused to drop the weapon. Behind him, the princess whispered again, her voice thin, "Fight, protector, fight." And with those words, something inside him settled like stone. He stepped forward, the spear glowing stronger as if answering her command. The hunters closed in, their blades flashing. The battlefield, once silent, roared with the sound of steel once again. Daniel swung wildly, his movements clumsy but fierce, the spear moving with strange guidance as though alive. Each clash of metal sent sparks into the night. Each strike pulled him deeper into the oath. By the time the hunters withdrew, two of them fallen, the others glaring with fury. Daniel stood bleeding, his chest heaving, his knuckles white on the spear. The leader pointed at him with hatred. "The trials will come, human," he spat. "Fail them, and your life, her life, and the bond will end." With that, the hunters melted into smoke, vanishing into the dark. Daniel dropped to one knee, his body shaking with exhaustion. The princess crawled closer, her hand pressing against the glowing mark on his arm. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "Protector," she whispered again. Daniel looked at her, his heart torn between anger and something he could not name. The unseen oath had been sealed, and his path was no longer his own. The ruins still burned faintly when the night grew colder. Daniel leaned against broken stone, blood drying on his uniform, his breath heavy but steady. The princess sat close by, her silver eyes never leaving him, her face pale yet unbroken. Between them lay the broken spear, glowing faintly, its light pulsing in rhythm with Daniel's heartbeat. He tried to rest, but deep inside he knew peace would not last. The unseen oath tied him to her, and already it was being tested. Every shadow seemed alive. Every sound in the dark felt like another threat waiting to strike. Daniel clenched his jaw, staring at the strange marks etched into his skin by the spear's light. He did not understand their meaning, yet every time his hand touched the weapon, the marks grew warmer. It was as if the spear itself demanded he rise whenever danger drew near. The princess spoke softly, forcing human words through broken accent. "Test begin," she whispered, her hand trembling as she pointed toward the distant hills. Daniel frowned, confused, but then he felt it, an unnatural vibration crawling through the ground. The stones around them shook slightly, dust falling from the ruins like rain. Something large was moving in the darkness, and it was coming for them. Daniel rose to his feet, his body aching but his grip firm on the spear. The princess struggled to stand, but her wounds held her down. He shook his head, motioning for her to stay hidden. "I'll deal with this," he muttered, even though fear gnawed at his chest. The sound grew louder, like metal grinding against stone, and then, from the smoke, a beast emerged, half flesh, half machine, its eyes burning crimson. The hunters had left this creature behind, a trial forged of steel and rage. It towered over Daniel, claws scraping the ground, its chest glowing with strange energy. The beast let out a roar that cracked the silence, echoing across the battlefield. Daniel tightened his grip, sweat sliding down his face, his heart pounding against his ribs. He had no shield, no armor, only the broken spear glowing faintly in his hand. The creature lunged forward, faster than its size should allow. Daniel rolled aside, the claws smashing into stone, sending shards flying. He swung the spear clumsily, striking the beast's shoulder, sparks flying, but no wound left behind. The weapon felt too light, too broken, yet every time he struck, the glowing marks on his arm flared brighter. It was as if the spear itself guided his strikes, pushing him to move where instinct failed. The princess called out, her voice weak but fierce, "Protector, fight." Her words carried more weight than sound. They stirred something deep inside him. Daniel planted his feet, raising the spear as the beast circled him. This time, when a monster lunged, he did not run. He met the strike head-on, the broken edge slicing across glowing metal flesh. A screech ripped from the beast as its crimson eyes flickered. Daniel stumbled back, barely dodging the counterstrike, claws tearing his sleeve open. Blood streaked his arm, but he refused to let go of the spear. Instead, he gritted his teeth and charged, striking again and again. Each hit clumsy, but each one forcing the beast to falter. The princess pressed her palm to the ground, whispering words in her own tongue. Faint energy rippled outward, surrounding Daniel like a shield. He felt strength return where only exhaustion had been, his lungs burning but steady. The beast roared and unleashed a blast of green fire from its chest. Daniel raised the spear instinctively, and to his shock, the broken weapon absorbed the flames. The glow from the spear grew so bright it blinded the beast. Daniel roared with everything left inside him and drove the weapon forward. The broken edge pierced through the creature's chest, striking the glowing core inside. For a moment, time froze, the beast's eyes wide. Daniel's face twisted with rage and fear. Then the core shattered, exploding in light that swept across the ruins. When silence returned, the beast collapsed in smoke and ash. Daniel fell to his knees, the spear still glowing faintly but now dimmer. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, his body shaking with pain and triumph. The princess crawled to him, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. Her voice carried pride, though broken, "Protector, pass." Daniel laughed bitterly under his breath, his eyes burning with exhaustion. "This is insane," he muttered. I don't know what I'm doing. I shouldn't even be alive." Yet, deep down, he knew the truth. The unseen oath would not allow him to run. The princess stared at him, her gaze steady, and for the first time he saw something softer behind her warrior pride. Not just need, but trust, fragile and real. Far away, unseen eyes watched from the darkness once again. Voices whispered like wind against stone. The protector is tested, and he endures. But another voice, darker and sharper, hissed in reply. He endures for now, but greater trials wait, and the oath will break him in the end. The watchers vanished into the night, leaving only silence behind. Daniel leaned back against the ruins, his hand clutching the spear tightly. He looked at the princess, who now rested against him, her strength almost gone. For the first time, he felt the weight of what had begun. This was no random fight, no chance encounter. This was a bond written in blood, trial, and fire, and it had only just started. The night faded slowly into a gray morning. The battlefield lay silent behind them, but Daniel and the princess could not remain there. The unseen oath pushed him forward, whispering like a weight on his chest. The broken spear glowed faintly in his hand, guiding him as if it knew where to go. The princess limped beside him, leaning on her wounded leg, her face pale yet determined. They moved through jagged rocks and twisted trees, the land scarred by war and fire. Every step carried danger. Every sound in the distance felt like another enemy waiting. Daniel scanned the horizon, his soldier's eyes sharp, his body tired but unyielding. The princess whispered warnings in broken human words, pointing out traps hidden beneath the dirt. Strange marks carved into stone told him this was no ordinary land. It was designed to kill. Once, as they crossed a narrow valley, the ground beneath Daniel's boot gave way. He stumbled back just in time as sharp spikes shot upward from the earth. The princess cried out, pulling him aside, her hand trembling as she explained, "Old war ground. Many dead here." Daniel nodded, his breath unsteady, realizing this land itself wanted them gone. Still, he tightened his grip on the spear and pressed on. Days blurred into nights. hunger and exhaustion growing heavier. Daniel shared the last of his rations, though she refused at first, her pride sharp as ever. But when she saw his steady gaze, she accepted, eating quietly, her silver eyes never leaving his face. There was silence between them, yet slowly, it turned into something deeper. She began teaching him single words in her tongue, pointing to the stars, the trees, the earth. "Sky," she whispered one night, her voice soft as she pointed upward. Daniel repeated clumsily, his voice rough but sincere. Her lips curved into the smallest smile, the first he had seen. In return, he taught her human words, simple ones: water, fire, friend. Each word shared between them became another thread in the strange bond the spear had forced. But the land did not allow peace for long. One evening, as they crossed a canyon path, shadows leapt from the cliffs above. Alien raiders, their armor black and their blades jagged, dropped down with cries that split the air. Daniel shoved the princess behind him, his body tense, the broken spear glowing in warning. The raiders laughed, circling like wolves, their eyes gleaming with hunger. The first rushed forward, swinging a hook blade. Daniel blocked, sparks flying as steel clashed against alien metal. The second struck from the side, forcing him to twist, his ribs burning with pain. The princess called out in her language, her voice sharp, her words carrying command. Daniel felt the spear respond to her cry, moving faster in his grip, almost alive. He fought clumsily but fiercely, each strike fueled not by skill but by will. The raiders underestimated him, expecting a human to fall quickly. But Daniel's stubbornness held him upright, his arms burning, his lungs aching. When one raider grabbed the princess, Daniel's vision blurred with fury. He roared and drove the broken spear forward, piercing the raider's chest. The others stepped back, fear flickering in their eyes. They had not expected the protector to endure. Their leader snarled, raising his blade high, but the princess stepped forward despite her wounds. She spoke with authority, her words sharp and commanding. The raiders froze, then hissed with frustration before retreating into the canyon shadows. Daniel lowered the spear, his chest heaving, his hands shaking with exhaustion. He turned to her, his voice raw. You saved me back there." She shook her head, her silver eyes steady. "Protector, save me, I save you," she whispered simply. For a moment, the silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken trust. And though neither admitted it, something had changed. Their journey stretched on, crossing deserts of glass and forests where the trees whispered. Strange beasts howled at night, their glowing eyes circling but never striking. Sometimes Daniel thought the oath itself scared them away. Other times he wondered if it only pulled worse dangers closer. But each trial hardened him. Each fight drew them closer, protector and heir bound together. One night, as they rested near a ruined tower, the princess traced the glowing mark on his hand. Her touch was light, her eyes unreadable. She whispered a single word in her language, one Daniel could not translate. But he felt its weight, its softness, as if she had shared a secret meant only for him. He looked at her, and for the first time, he did not feel like a stranger in her world. Yet in the darkness, far beyond the ruined tower, the hunters gathered once more. Their leader spoke with venom. "He survives, but the trials are not over." Another voice hissed, "Let him walk the hostile lands. Let him believe he grows strong. Then we will break him when it matters most." The hunters' eyes glowed in the night, waiting, for the oath was only beginning, and greater dangers waited in the shadows ahead. The long journey through hostile lands finally brought Daniel and the princess to the heart of her people's world. The alien capital rose like black stone mountains, towers sharp as blades piercing the clouds, glowing veins of crimson light running across their surfaces. The air was thick with tension, filled with whispers that carried through the crowded streets. Every alien, I turned toward the human walking beside their wounded heir, a human carrying the shattered spear glowing faintly in his hand. Daniel felt the weight of every gaze, but the oath refused to let him turn back. The princess walked with pride despite her wounds, her steps slow but steady, her head held high. She led him through massive gates into a hall where shadows clung to the walls like living things. There, the Council of Blood awaited, a circle of elders and warlords, their armor painted with the blood-red symbols of power. Their eyes burned with fury at the sight of a human daring to stand among them. Daniel felt the anger in the air like fire licking his skin, but he did not lower his gaze. The eldest among them rose, his voice deep and sharp as thunder. "The law has been broken," he declared, pointing at Daniel with a hand covered in scars. "No human may carry the spear of the air. No outsider may bear the oath of protector." The princess stepped forward, her voice strained yet firm. "The law is not broken. It is fulfilled." He lifted the spear, and the oath chose him. The council erupted in shouts, some calling for Daniel's execution, others demanding the oath be cut by fire. Daniel's grip on the spear tightened, his chest heavy, his mind racing with thoughts of escape. But something inside refused to yield. He had not come this far to bow now. He raised the weapon slightly, its glow filling the chamber with faint light. The council grew silent, watching as the symbols on his arm flared in answer. Even those who hated him could not deny the truth. The bond was real. The eldest snarled, his eyes burning. "Then let the law test him. Let the trial decide if he is worthy." A hush fell over the hall, the words carrying a weight that pressed on Daniel's chest like stone. The princess's eyes widened, her lips parting as if to protest, but she did not speak, for she knew the trial of the protector could not be denied once declared. If Daniel failed, both their lives would end, and the oath itself would burn to ashes. The council struck the floor with their blades, the sound echoing like thunder. "Tomorrow," the eldest said, his voice final, "the human enters the arena of blood before all our people. He will fight, he will bleed, and he will prove, or he will die." The hall roared with agreement, voices rising like a storm. Daniel's heart pounded, his mind screaming that he was only a soldier, not a champion, not a hero. But when he looked at the princess, her silver eyes steady, he found himself nodding. The council dismissed them, guards pushing them out into the cold night. The streets echoed with whispers, children pointing, warriors glaring, merchants spitting at the human who dared walk among them. Daniel kept his head high, though each step felt heavier. The princess walked close beside him, silent, until they reached a quiet chamber hidden deep in the palace walls. Only then did she speak, her voice low, her words halting but clear. "Arena, death for many, no mercy." Daniel sat heavily on a stone bench, his hand trembling as he stared at the spear. He wanted to throw it away, to walk into the night and never return. But when he tried to loosen his grip, the oath burned in his skin, holding him to it. He looked at her, his voice raw. "Why didn't you stop them? Why didn't you tell them I can't do this?" Her gaze did not waver. "Because, protector, you must," she whispered. The silence between them was sharp, heavy with truth neither of them wanted to face. Finally, she sat beside him, her hand brushing against the glowing mark on his arm. "You think you are weak," she said slowly, searching for words in human tongue. "But Oath chose, not you, not me, Oath knows." Daniel laughed bitterly, his chest tight. "Then the Oath is insane," he muttered. But deep inside, he knew he could not walk away. The night stretched long, every moment heavy with the shadow of what awaited. The arena of blood was not a place for soldiers. It was a place where monsters and champions were fed to the crowd. Daniel lay awake, listening to the silence of the palace, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes waiting to see him fall. The princess sat near, her eyes never closing, as if she too carried the burden of his fate. When the first light of dawn touched the alien sky, the horns of the city cried out, calling all to the arena. Daniel rose, his hands shaking but his jaw set. The princess placed her hand on his chest, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Protector, fight, and live." He nodded once, gripping the broken spear tighter than ever before. The time for words was over. The council had demanded blood, and tomorrow, the arena of destiny would decide his fate. The horns of a city shook the air as morning came. Daniel stood at the gates of the arena, his hands gripping the broken spear so tightly that his knuckles turned white. All around him, the roar of the alien crowd rose like thunder, a storm of voices demanding blood. The arena of destiny stretched before him, a vast circle of stones soaked in the memory of 1,000 battles. The sand beneath his boots was already stained dark with old blood, and the air carried the smell of iron and ash. The princess stood at the edge, guarded by warriors who would not let her step closer. Her silver eyes locked on him, fierce and unblinking, as though her will alone could shield him. Daniel's heart pounded, his breath sharp, yet his legs moved forward because the oath refused to let him stop. The council sat high above on thrones carved from black stone, their armor gleaming, their voices silent but heavy with judgment. The eldest elder rose and spoke, his voice echoing across the arena. "The human stands as protector, unworthy by blood, unworthy by law," the elder thundered. "But the oath cannot be broken, so let him prove by trial. Let the arena decide his fate." The crowd roared with savage joy, stamping their weapons against stone, chanting for the fight to begin. Daniel swallowed hard, sweat sliding down his temple, his mind screaming that he was no champion. Still, he raised the spear, the broken edge glowing faintly in the shadow of the towering walls. The first gate opened with a deep rumble, chains snapping as massive doors pulled apart. From the darkness emerged a beast unlike any Daniel had seen, taller than 3 men, its body armored with thick scales, its claws dripping with poison. Its eyes glowed red, and a deep growl shook the ground as it stepped into the light. The crowd howled, hungry for the kill, their chants echoing like drums of war. Daniel felt his chest tighten, but the spear pulsed in his grip as if alive. The beast lunged, its massive claw striking like a hammer. Daniel rolled aside, sand spraying into his eyes, the ground shaking as the claw slammed into stone. He swung the spear wildly, striking the beast's side, sparks flying but leaving little damage. The crowd laughed at the human's weakness, their voices cruel. But from an edge, the princess shouted, her voice sharp as steel, "Protector, stand." Her cry cut through the noise, and Daniel's arm steadied. He gritted his teeth, his breath heavy, and planted his feet in the sand. When the beast lunged again, he met it head-on, the broken spear glowing brighter than before. The edge cut across its thick hide, leaving a burning scar of light that made the creature roar in fury. The crowd gasped, their laughter dying for the first time. The beast slammed him down, claws tearing across his shoulder, blood spraying into the sand. Pain burned through him, but Daniel refused to release the spear. He screamed and drove the weapon upward into the beast's throat, the glowing edge piercing through flesh and scale. The creature staggered back, thrashing wildly, its roar shaking the walls. Daniel collapsed to one knee, gasping for air, but he forced himself to rise again. The beast stumbled and crashed to the ground, its body twitching before falling still. The arena shook with the roar of the crowd, half in rage, half in awe. Daniel stood over the fallen monster, his body bleeding, his chest heaving, the spear glowing like a burning star in his hand. The princess pressed her hands to her chest, her eyes filled with fierce pride. But the council did not cheer. They only raised their hands, and the gates rumbled open again. This time, 3 warriors stepped out, their armor dark, their blades curved and dripping with green fire. They were champions of the council, chosen to finish what the beast could not. Daniel's heart sank, his body already broken, but the oath burned in his veins, forcing him to raise the spear once more. The warriors circled him, striking one after another, testing his strength. Each blow rattled his bones. Each strike sent blood running down his arms. Still, he endured, blocking, dodging, striking back with clumsy desperation. One warrior fell when Daniel drove the broken spear through his chest. The crowd erupted again, torn between hatred and awe. The second warrior slashed his leg, making him stumble, but Daniel countered with a strike that split his helmet. The last warrior pressed him hard, driving him back toward the center of the arena. Daniel's vision blurred, his body trembling, but the princess shouted again, her voice breaking through his fear. "Protector, fight!" she cried, her hands clenched against the bars of her cage. Daniel roared with what little strength he had left and swung the spear in a wide arc. The broken edge blazed with light, cutting through the warrior's chest in a single strike. The crowd fell into stunned silence as the last of the champions collapsed. Daniel stood swaying, his body broken, his blood staining the sand but still alive. He raised the broken spear high, its glow burning brighter than ever before. The princess closed her eyes, whispering in her tongue, her voice soft but fierce, "Protector." The council watched in silence, their rage hidden behind cold stares. For though they hated the human, they could not deny the truth. He had survived the arena of destiny. The arena still echoed with the silence of shock. Daniel stood in the center, his body torn and bleeding, the broken spear glowing faintly in his trembling hands. All around him, the alien crowd watched in disbelief, thousands of eyes fixed on the human who refused to fall. The sand beneath him was dark with blood, yet still he stood, chest heaving, eyes unbroken. The princess pressed her hands against the bars of her cage, her voice rising above the silence. "Protector," she whispered with pride. The council shifted uneasily upon their black stone thrones, their cold eyes sharp as blades. The eldest elder rose, his voice deep and bitter. "The human has endured, the oath remains, but this does not mean he is welcome." The crowd roared, half demanding his death, half calling his name in awe. For the first time in their history, a human had bled in the arena of destiny and lived. The law of the oath had spoken, and even the council could not erase it. Guards unlocked the cage, allowing the princess to step forward. Her steps were slow, her body wounded, but her spirit unyielding as she walked to Daniel's side. She placed her hand upon his chest, her silver eyes meeting his tired gaze. Then she raised the broken spear high for all to see, its light glowing like fire in the dawn sky. "The oath is fulfilled," she declared in her language, her voice ringing with command. The people cried out, some in rage, some in honor, the sound splitting the air like a storm. Daniel felt the world spin, his knees nearly giving way, but her touch steadied him. Though he had not asked for this role, he understood now. He was no longer just a soldier lost in a foreign war. He was protector, bound not only by oath, but by choice, forged in blood and fire. The bond between them was no longer only law, it was trust. The council could not hide their fury, their voices cold and sharp. "The oath cannot be undone," the eldest admitted. "But know this, human, many will never accept you. Many will seek your death." Daniel met his gaze, his voice rough but steady. "Let them try," he said, his hand tightening on the spear. The princess stood beside him, her head high, her voice fierce. "Who harms him, harms me." The chamber grew silent, the weight of her words undeniable. The guards stepped back, unsure, their loyalty torn between law and hatred. The crowd whispered, the image of the human standing beside their heir searing into memory. Some spat curses, others lowered their heads in respect. Change had begun, whether the council desired it or not. And deep in the shadows, unseen figures whispered, "The protector rises, the oath grows strong, but war will follow." That night, Daniel and the princess left the arena, the city still restless with anger and awe. He staggered through the halls, every wound burning, but he refused to fall until they reached the quiet of a hidden chamber. There at last, his body collapsed against the stone, the spear resting beside him. The princess knelt at his side, her hand brushing against his mark, her eyes soft yet unyielding. "You live because you fight," she whispered, "but you fight because you're a protector." Daniel closed his eyes, exhaustion drowning him, but he managed a faint laugh. "I never asked for this," he murmured, his voice broken yet steady. Her lips curved into the smallest smile, rare and fragile. "Oath never ask, oath choose," she said. He met her gaze, and in that moment, he understood something deeper. This was no curse, no chain. It was a path, dangerous and bloody, but his own. The days that followed were tense, the city divided. Some warriors spoke of rebellion, refusing to follow an heir bound to a human. Others whispered that perhaps the oath had chosen well, for the human had fought as fiercely as any champion. Daniel trained each day despite his wounds, the spear now part of him, guiding his movements. The princess stayed close, her lessons in language growing stronger, their bond growing beyond duty. Yet peace was fragile, for far beyond the capital, the hunters gathered once again. Their leader raised his blade, his voice sharp as ice. "He has survived the arena, but this is only the beginning. We will strike when the bond is strongest and tear it apart." The shadows hissed in agreement, their eyes burning with hatred. The war had not ended in the arena, it had only begun. And the unseen oath that bound human and heir would decide the fate of more than just themselves. Daniel stood one evening on the high walls of the capital, staring out at the horizon. The spear glowed faintly at his side, the princess standing silently beside him. For the first time, he felt the truth settle in his chest. He was not just a survivor. He was protector, chosen by fate, bound by blood. And no matter what came, he would not abandon her. The night wind carried whispers of war, but his voice was steady as he spoke into the darkness. "I didn't choose this, but I'll see it through." The spear flared with light. The princess bowed her head slightly in respect. Together they stood, two unlikely allies, protector and heir, their bond sealed against a galaxy waiting to test them. And though neither could see the full storm ahead, one truth was clear. The human had lifted her shattered spear, and with it, he had lifted a destiny greater than either of them could imagine. The chosen protector had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again.